Welcome to the vodcast, brought to you by Vega Cloud. I'm Cameron Hatten, this week's host, and I'm fortunate to be joined by a friend and known FinOps giant, Zak Ali from Invesco. We host these very regularly with the who's who in FinOps. If you like this content in the video, as the kids say, like and subscribe. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the vodcast. This is Cameron Hatten from Vega Cloud, your enterprise-grade FinOps platform, and we're excited to have a very special guest with us today, Zak Ali from Invesco, who globally leads FinOps and cloud modernization. And Zak, you want to say hi to the crowd?
Hello there. Yes, I do work for Invesco, at Invesco. We're a global financial asset manager. We manage $1.8 trillion in assets globally. It's an amazing number. Always think about how big that number is. And we have about 8,000 employees globally. And I'm happy to be here to talk about FinOps and everything around that subject.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. We're super fortunate to have really wonderful people who like to talk about this with us, and you are one of them. We've known you a long time. Our
That's
history
right.
goes. I had to check. I thought it was 17, but it was 2018 that you and I first met, at least. And if I think about that, that's before the FinOps Foundation was started. Technically, I think FinOps Foundation started in 19. So we were talking about cloud cost optimization quite a long time ago, and you were already well on your way in that area. Do you remember?
Yeah,
Do you remember 2018?
actually remember we I think first met at reInvent or something like that. It was how we got together and sort of built a partnership. I think FinOps for us started as soon as we started hitting the cloud. As soon as I got some little bill in my corporate card, we realized from the beginning, because of our business modeling, what we wanted to use the cloud for and what value it drives. And then we watched the dollars. We knew that we always heard the stories about, oh no, I've got this massive cloud bill and I need to go, and it's always reactive rather than proactive. And at Invesco, we were very proactive and intentional with our cloud first strategy. So we've done really well. And then you just reminded me that was what, 7 years, and we're probably doing it 9 years or something like that as a practice, which just reminds me how old I am as well. So, and how long I've been here. But yeah, it's been a journey, and I love every minute in the day of being a FinOps practitioner. And I'm always happy to share my experiences and learn. You can learn a lot, right, regardless of where you are in your journey.
Yeah, 100%. This space is moving so quickly, even though all those years we just described, there's so much for us to continue to glean from each other. So we're grateful to listen to you today and have you tell us a little bit more about that story. One of the things I wanted to start with, you kind of already alluded to, was just creating the momentum from a FinOps perspective at Invesco. Like suggestions you have based on your experience for how you even began to get adoption. I'm like, well, how did you get the FinOps motion going beyond the fact that you wanted to make sure you were being fiscally responsible? You had to get buy-in
Right,
out
right, right. Yeah, that's a good question. So the pincer approach, I guess, a two-pronged approach. Uh, a lot of folks talked originally about in FinOps Foundation, especially, and when we look at the state of FinOps, people have talked about getting engineers to take action or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, we really think about the engineers' function. It's not really where they can actually make decisions. They can be part of the decision-making process, but it's not for them to decide because the technology is delivering some sort of business value. So the way we approached it was two ways. First of all, it's contextual. So at Invesco, our cloud is a showback model.
Yeah.
That takes a different strategy than a chargeback, right? One's easy. Well, you can say it's easier than the other, but from a central FinOps team, that's what we are. We're a centralized FinOps function, but our accountability shifts out. You could think of good stewards and ambassadors of FinOps embedded within the teams. Now
Right.
we are. So the way we approached it was we did the foundational thing. So we actually built our own cloud bill, myself and an engineer, and we send these emails with text in them, extracting data and almost sending a cost report every week to
Yeah.
application owners. And the application owners, there were not that many of them. So, and then we started talking to them and they'd go, what's this that we're receiving? Then, because I was actually the principal architect of cloud, I'd have a conversation about building for cost as well. You know, the cost is now a factor in your design model.
Well,
So
architect.
then we think about, yeah, well architected, right? That all
Yeah.
develops. And then on the other side is, well, we're paying this bill, but I'm being asked what for. That's not my position to say that, right? I can show you the insights. So we developed the insights and then built a strategy around FinOps and driving accountability. And we have these principles. And then almost like the FinOps Foundation, actually we start because the FinOps Foundation developed, their framework was developing.
Yep.
We took parts of that, built our own. We did our own gap analysis internally at a high level and said, these are the capabilities that are missing in the cloud world. This will be your role because they're all different personas, right? So the CFO all the way down to our finance teams, they have a role to play. All the engineering teams have a role to play. All the business has a role to play, which traditionally they didn't. The way we procure hardware traditionally for our data centers is completely different than how you procure cloud services.
Yep.
You end up bypassing a developer, in fact, ends up bypassing everyone and implicitly makes a procurement and finance decision and all these sort of things. So that was a multifaceted approach, right? You take a strategy and you drive it from the top and then get everyone on board and then start shifting the culture and talking to what does FinOps mean? Like it's
Hmm.
not an accounting thing because I think FinOps gets confused, right? It's actually cloud financial operations, not FinOps financial operations because everyone thinks you're an accountant and you're working for the accounting department. And we're not doing that. We're not doing financial operations in that sense. So we hit all those tiers,
Hmm.
and then we keep on driving the culture, and that's basically rinse and repeat. That's all we've been doing, and we've had fun along the way. We can talk about that as well. I know Vega does that as well. We talked about incentivizing,
Right.
and that's really the biggest thing, right? So what's in it for me, and how do you incentivize different personas and gain that momentum?
Yeah. And it I remember having a conversation with you maybe 6 months, maybe 9 months ago, and you were describing this. I wrote it down as a report card, but it was like the evolution of this email that you were originally sending that has now become more than that. Can you describe what that looks like
Uh,
today?
yeah. So this is another. So this is about shift and accountability,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the idea came from our CIO. So we're talking, and most of our technology costs, and our cloud is its own, right? Before it was everything bundled, and it's become bigger and bigger as it has with every organization. It became so big that the business didn't actually recognize the impact from a spend perspective, right?
Mm, mm.
Right, not cost but spend. Like this is what you're spending. Do you actually realize that? So we said, okay, this is all about culture change and really psychology, right?
Yeah.
So you go, okay, they don't understand because it doesn't appear anywhere in the sense that it should do. So can I invoice them like a fake invoice? That was okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to get a reaction, like this is
Yeah.
what you're costing me. So what I did was I took the largest cloud provider and I took my over here in Houston. I'm in Houston, by the way, forget my accent, but not Texas twang yet. I do say y'all, but I took my electricity provider's bill,
Hmm.
gave it to a designer, and said, I want a cloud utility bill like this.
Yes.
And that's what I think you're alluding to, what you're
Yes.
talking about. And then I said, what do you do when you receive your electricity bill? First, they send you this, maybe a PDF or a snapshot in your email. And in there, it says, this is what you're spending. This is what you spent last month. This is what we predict you're going to spend next month. By the way, this is what your neighbors are spending. So you're not
That I
some
remember.
gamifying it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then here's some smart things you can do. So the electricity provider typically, and we're in Houston, right? So they say, turn your thermostat down a couple of notches. They give you some smart tips and tricks to do, and they also tell you, hey, the weather's going to make it hot. You know, they tell you outside influence factors that influence your bill, right?
Right.
We do the same with the cloud. So we have smart insights. So every month, our business heads of business technology, and then they take it to the business, get this bill in their email. And the reason we did that was, regardless of what dashboards we created in our tooling, it still looks like a bunch of technology. There's no business context in that.
Right.
And it's hard to do, right? Because that's institutional knowledge. So we've built that on top. And it's been very, very well received. And it's probably one of our, I think it's like a flagship product that we created in FinOps.
Yeah.
Because it's really simple, but really effective because it's really simple.
It's I think it's brilliant, and I've thought about it ever since you mentioned it, because it also plays into the next subject that you were alluding to earlier, which is this idea of gamification. So, right, like it's not only about what I'm doing and what I could be doing better, but what's my neighbor doing? Like, and why? How are they? How is they have the same size house? They have the same size air conditioner, whatever. Like, and why is their bill different? I'm using air conditioner because you're in Houston, and so
Right.
that just plays a role. But like why are they doing a better job than I am, and what can I learn from them, right? Like, what else have you guys done to lean into the gamification side of the world?
So you know me, I'm always joking, and it's somewhat of a comedy show with me sometimes. And I've got to that age where it's all dad jokes anyway, so people are just rolling their eyes, right? What I did last year was we have a savings objective and key result. Now, again, the objective is the head of global infrastructure, my boss's boss, and that's hard, right? So it's someone else's goal, but I've got everyone else to actually they have to do the work to meet my goal. So how do I
Right.
incentivize that?
Right.
So what I did was, like all good artists do, we just steal. So I stole another idea, and then I put my own spin on it. So one of the skills that I've built over the years is communication. Now, it's one thing. I've been an engineer before. I'm one of those guys who sat in the corner and freak out if I had to speak to someone. So I built this skill up, and
And you're pretty good.
really, I put my own spin around it, right? And I'll push the barriers of the proper thing to do, and you know whether that's professional or not is debatable, but I always seem to pull it off. So what I did was I went to we have this all tech meeting, happens twice a week. All tech to come down, people celebrate their wins, we talk about operational things, and we share information. It's very effective. So I want all these folks in the all tech to help me in our technology group, right? I want you to help me meet this objective of saving X money by 2024. Oh, we made it, by the way. We surpassed it actually. So what I did was first, when you tell an engineer that, hey, you're spending $10, what are you spending it for? People go, okay, I'm not bothered about $10. So I made it a very big number. So I took some of the metrics from the internet, and then we were looking at AI. So I used Copilot to do that. So then
Yeah.
I said, hey, I've asked my robot overlord, and I turned it into a funny thing, right? So ask my robot overlord, how much cloud spend is there globally? And it was something like $167 billion. It's a monster number when you look at it. And then how much is wasted? I think it was like something like 47 billion is waste.
Wow.
So then that's my hook, right? You go, okay. And everyone goes, what? Then I said, how much do you think what's the average utilization? And it goes back to I've been building and running data centers for a good chunk of my career, and virtualization and all those sort of things. We always understood that you never fully utilize your assets, right? You never fully utilize compute or whatever it is. You end up building for the peak.
Right.
So I came up with a number, and I thought, well, all statistics, 99% of statistics are all lies. But I wanted to get a reaction
Yeah.
because I'd always get the argument, well, we know we fully utilize our service, but on average, what is it? And I think globally it was like 20%, at average. That's still low, right? If you're trying to squeeze as much out of a cloud provider, and the thing is, it's supposed to be efficient,
Right.
but we're supposed to be building for efficiency in our well architected, then obviously this is not happening, right?
Right.
So then I showed our numbers, and then I gave, and everyone remembers, and our current CIO says the same thing again. Everyone remembers three things. So I asked them to do three things. Right, this is the takeaway. Right.
Yeah.
I asked them to auto park. I asked them to remove stuff out of prototypes and POCs. And I put a number to it. So I said, okay, when you auto park, we can figure it out. How many hours a year, $1 an hour, blah, 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 this much. And that's easy, right? These are easy wins. Auto parking and then optimization. But I did the entire thing in gifts. So
Oh, really?
I got like a
Nice.
Tesla and it was auto parking because some people don't even understand what auto parking is, right? You
Yeah.
explain what that is. And then I think I got some Back to the Future reference or something. And, anyway, I did that. And then after that, I came back. So I gave them their takeaways. And then it was around Earth Day.
Okay.
So I went, okay, if you don't even believe in money, and then I showed them our CO2 usage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went, that's another incentive. There's, there's a bigger picture here. So
Hmm.
hit people where they are. So I did
Hmm.
that first. And then after that, I came back and I started awarding fake $1 million bills for everyone who saved money.
I
So
love
there
it.
was an engineer who came to me and said, I've saved 4 grand, right? I think it was on object storage. So I took a picture of him with his fake $1 million, and then I've been doing that. So that's how I've been gamifying. We always talk about giving people bonuses, and that doesn't last long, but giving them purpose, we've given them a common language. That person, that engineer could go to anyone and say, there's dollars. He can talk about objects and S3 and Azure storage and all this sort of stuff. It doesn't make sense to an executive. Like, oh yeah, great. But if he
Yeah.
goes, I saved the company 4Gs and this is how I did it, that that's impactful, right? And it can go all the way up and they're celebrated. So the other thing I've done is in FinOps very quickly, even though I've got FinOps engineers and analysts, we all just talk in dollars. I always talk in dollars because everyone understands what a dollar is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and pride goes a long way. I love how you like pulled on pride because we're all very pride. We're all very pride. Some people's egos are bigger than others, but everyone has pride, and the ability to say I did something that was meaningful and be recognized for it. We don't. We our Chris, who you know, who is our CEO. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's a technologist at heart, and he constantly beating the drum that shamification doesn't work. And that's what so many people lean on is this ability to say, hey, you're spending too much. Not look what you did. And people naturally see other people getting recognized and they want that same recognition, which is what essentially what you're doing, right?
Right. And I think that's probably one area we can talk about, which is unit costs and really
Mm,
why we're doing this. It's not about dollars.
right.
It's about how you spend the dollars. You're
This is
always going to be
fact.
spending dollars. The spend's always going to go up.
Right.
But what value are you getting from it? And then I think that FinOps plays a role in helping our business partners articulate business value for the
Yeah.
technology they're consuming. And that's really what we're heading towards at Invesco.
How are you? So I wasn't even planning on going down that path, but since you opened that door, how do you get your arms around a business value, unit cost
Unit
economics,
costs,
whatever
right.
term you use for it? What do you do for that?
What we typically do is just start with what we know. So we
Yeah.
know that when we're looking at compute cloud services infrastructure,
Hmm.
going all the way up to as a service, we try putting unit costs around those
Hmm.
because that drives optimization, waste, and things that we do day in, day out. And now what we're doing, our enterprise service group quickly realized that what we were trying to push that like way early before our organization. We're heading way faster than our organization um, are, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of our first challenges. It became a very negative thing. So we got some business metrics and we went, okay, let's apply it to this. And we got sponsorship to do that, but it failed because it's seen as you're opening the covers. You're looking under the covers here about our business. And I'm going, no, 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 no. What wasn't well received, and this is the challenge. You've got to, the positive side of this is you as a business or a business technology group can now pull levers almost in real time
Yeah.
to meet the big needs of the business. So you're optimizing your spend according to your business needs, and you can see that. So let's say if your usage goes down, it's cyclical, then you can now pull a lever, whatever that lever is. It could be that You turn down technology or you re-architect it so it's horizontally scaling and it's not vertically scaling. All the traditional things that we've done forever as technologists,
Yeah.
you've got that ability and you can see it in dollars, right? And units. And that's the journey that we're taking. So we've defined the areas that we want to go for. I think we're at the point of our maturity where we are now going into that space because we built the fundamentals. And the
Yeah.
fundamental, obviously we just talked, it's what, 7, 8 year journey, right? To get to this point.
Yeah.
And then that's what I've been seeing with my other peers in FinOps. When they're at this point, they're driving that. And it's hard. If people are fooling themselves if they think it's easy. It's easy depending on what your business is. We're a multifaceted business, right? We have many products.
Yeah.
We have certain business metrics that are consistent, like our assets under management. I explained that. I articulated what it was. And then there's revenue and all these things. But you may not be able to turn the dial on just a revenue number, right? You have to find other metrics like usage and overall value, efficiency. Maybe that's maybe
Yeah.
a metric. And efficiency, these are all very expansive terms, but it helps lead to get to some sort of unit costs.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's a journey for experimentation, I think.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, all of this spend in the cloud is meant to drive revenue for the business. So how does, is that an efficient use of that dollar for the bigger dollar from a top line revenue perspective? Which again, to your point, not easy to do, but a worthwhile journey to take. Because when you do find that magic number of for every dollar we spend here, we make this many dollars there. That's when you get the executive's attention at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of tied to that. Another subject we've talked about recently was, and I'm paraphrasing again because it was a while ago and I slept since then, but it was how you go about making sure that the business value that your team is driving is very clear, and the ROI that that Invesco gets from your team. Because we hear a lot in the space. I'm sure you do too, especially in the larger enterprise, that constantly trying to justify why their team should be bigger, what value you would get from bringing on more FinOps analysts or engineers or whatever.
Right, right.
Can you share a little bit more about how you make sure that the business value ROI of your team is viewed by the executive team at Invesco?
Yeah, we don't do this now. So the last time we spoke, and yes, we have slept. Um, I still sort of use it, but I think it's implied.
Okay.
It's not a, yeah, like I said, my push right now to the organization not is to justify myself because I've proven that year over year.
Right.
I don't need to do that anymore. So I've gone on to accountability shift, right? Hey, you help me get even better
Right.
and put big numbers out there.
Right.
But what we did was, and I've heard this a bit, I was in a couple of FinOps user groups and it's a common theme, right? People go, okay, what value do you provide? Dead easy. So you avoid or save a bunch of money and your team and all the tools that you own are your operating expenses. So you take away that from your savings, which is think of it as profit, and that's your return on investment. Easy. So you can quite quickly justify your existence. And you start looking at the cost. And typically, I haven't really seen massive FinOps teams, to be honest. I'm not sure if you have come. It'd be interesting to understand like why those exist. Maybe because of the operating model or how they want to, build those teams. We're a team of 4, including me, so it's 3.5, I guess. And I don't see us getting any bigger than that because we're shifting accountability. Because what we're doing is we're developing FinOps practitioners. They're not as
Yeah. Of
deep as us because we're offering consultancy and we're centrally managing discounts and all those sort of things that we do at a strategic level.
course. Yeah.
But the day to day, that's not us. We shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
So for going back to your question, quite easy. It's simple math. We're an investment company, so can actually obviously do return on investment. But that's how we took return on investment, and that was from my, our CIO at the time just gave me that. Said, okay, you've got to meet this ROI. I went, okay, that's how I'm going to meet it. That was
Yeah.
justification.
Well, I mean, it sounds straightforward. I think what I've seen in this space for less mature FinOps teams is that they're just not taking that extra step. It's assumed, but you need to take that step and provide the data. Data rules the world. And of course, to your point, like you can don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. But you can massage data any way you want. But there are some truths with the capital T, like cost avoidance and other things that are very real, and the cost of your team and the cost of the tools you spend. So I appreciate you sharing it, because I think there's a lot of people out there that need to hear that need to hear, listen, it's pretty simple math. Just do it regularly, and make sure everyone can see it, because it's important for you and the members of your team that it's your $1 million ticket. It's your pride moment.
Right,
It's your
right, right,
picture, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that every month. We did that every month. Every month we go to an executive committee and we show them, apart from all our FinOps numbers, we show them the ROI, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. So it was pretty good.
You another thing you just mentioned. I'm bouncing all over the place. I have a lot of
I don't
caffeine
worry
in
about
me,
it.
by the way, a lot of caffeine.
Yeah.
No, the other thing you just mentioned that I think is interesting to just touch on for a second, maybe, is like what's we here at Vega are constantly telling customers FinOps need to be pervasive. Everybody needs to have a role, and that's why they need to have visibility and all these other things. And you're doing a great job of all that. Um, but there are some things that need to be also centralized. Can you talk a little bit about the key elements that you make sure remain with the central team that you own, like committed discounts or other things?
Yes. So that is the key. The way we've structured our and vended our accounts and how we structure all of our accounts in various hyperscalers, it's centralized, right? The billing's centralized. And because of that, we're thinking the FinOps team think about all of Invesco and the benefit to all of Invesco. When you go to different businesses, their focus is on themselves, right?
Of course.
That can then roll on to how you construct your cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So we understand and recognize that centralized billing and uh, a centralized view of the entire world and making strategic decisions up here, that's what we need to retain. So
Right.
if you're doing commitments at an account level, you bet, and in a variable cost model and things are always changing, maybe a business disappears and you've committed to a whole bunch of spend, and now that business disappears tomorrow. What's going to happen to that commitment? You're still
Right.
going to owe money, right?
Right.
The benefit of raising it up is that it's spread. Now, you might not get the promise of the calculators tell you,
Sure.
because everyone goes, oh, I'm going to save 70%. I went, yeah, there's a risk to that. So the other side of this is not about the benefit, but managing risk.
Yeah.
Because every time you commit, you're managing risk on our books, right?
Right.
It's risk on our books.
Mm-hmm.
And you're holding that risk either in some enterprise agreement, which is multi-year. So that's a multi-year risk. That's a lot of money.
Right.
Or even in reservations, and they can be up to 3 years. That's 3 years worth of risk that you're carrying. So you're guessing that, hey, I'm committed to this, and I'm going to squeeze every dollar of my commitment. I don't know. I can't really see past next Thursday, So sometimes, why would I commit 3 years? But sometimes you can. I think
Yeah.
sometimes you can say, yep, I can do it, and I'm going to do it, and that's why we centralize it. It's basically strategic,
Mm-hmm.
doing overall good. We may get less benefit, but overall good, and then conservatively managing risk, because that's the biggest thing. And then a lot of folk, that's why we exist as a FinOps team. We totally understand risk, and then that's our job to convey why we're doing these things. So that's why we keep it centralized.
Well, I'm guessing Invesco as a whole is pretty good at managing risk. It's kind of
Somewhat.
part of the business,
We're
right?
good with people's money. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So,
Our
so
clients' money.
committed discounts, the whatever commitments you have with your cloud providers, making sure the bills are accurate, all that lives in your team's world.
Right. And then we also have an engineering function,
Yeah.
and we have a partnership with so I'm in a cloud and solutions group. So my peers run cloud architecture and solutions architecture, and then platform engineering.
Hmm.
So we work together. So it's sort of within our family,
Yeah.
and then we expand out to all the others. So that's how we typically interface with folks, and that's the engineering side of it. Because we can still give a lot of folks come to us because they struggle with bill for cost. Because it's not always that easy, right? There's a push pull effect, especially if you're committing and trying to save at the same time, and all of those things start getting all very confusing. Well,
Right.
we try and alleviate that confusion and give folks a strategy to apply. Because it's not just about cost, right? If you focus on cost, then you could reduce value, performance, and all these things. So
Right.
it's a multifaceted approach, and we contribute towards that from a technical perspective as well. No, it's not purely a analytic insights function.
Yeah. 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 And then the other, um, and other things that's oftentimes are centrally managed, we talked about a second ago, but I don't think I've asked you about this before, is just making sure that all those discounts are applied correctly. And are you getting billed correctly from your cloud providers? Anything, because as we were both at FinOps X and we've heard Uber talk about 6.7% being wrong, and that's a big number.
Yeah, that's a really big number.
But I was curious, like, what's your experience in that area in terms of like just reconciling the invoice?
Yeah, that's an actual hard one because there can be millions of lines, hundreds of thousands of lines that you have to try and reconcile. So I think we just got a pragmatic approach. We try and catch the big ones and then just work our way through it. I feel that's where, and we're doing this right now, we're collaborating more with sort of invoicing and those functions that traditionally work with legacy technology and get them on board with the FinOps ways of working. That is key. So to collaborate is key here. And then those sorts of things will be reconciled by the right people. We might not even be the right people, right? But other folks have been reconciling invoices for the entire career.
Yeah.
Well, this is just the same function. And the more eyes we have on these things and more checks and balances we have, we're going to obviously reduce that number.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of these numbers are scary. I think one of the other, my opinion is, and my observation is that the companies that we're working with have got all the same problems and challenges as the company that you work for. They're no better, right? So you look at these big hyperscalers, they're still a company and they make
Yeah.
mistakes and there's
Yes.
human error. People type things in wrong. A million? No, I put in too many zeros because I didn't have my coffee this morning or something. These things happen. I think we have to realize that they have the same challenges. They're not perfect.
Well,
And
right.
assuming that this is perfect, that's not right. Like we get billed wrong every. You go to a restaurant and they bill you wrong, right? You look at what you bought. We should be doing the same thing here. It's the same thing. It's just on a bigger scale and it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah. 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 The difference is your receipt at dinner is so long after maybe you added a couple extra cocktails at the bottom. So maybe it's a little longer, but the hundreds and thousands of lines that you get.
Yeah, yeah.
Me too.
That function that I'm working with right now, because we sort of took on that responsibility ourselves. I remember the lead of that group, and you wanted to see what a bill looked like. And this was way back when, like when we were working together, and actually maybe even before. And even then, it was like 84 pages. I don't know even. I think they're always summarized now, right? Because I see a different view now.
Yeah.
But the PDF's like 84 pages and goes, "Am I going to go through this?"
Yeah. You're not. I
You're not.
mean, right.
That's right.
Answer. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I would be remiss if we left this call if I didn't ask you two more questions. The first one is crystal ball time. So, where is the future of this whole FinOps game going? Is the first one, and to frame it maybe a little bit more. I'm curious. Obviously, the FinOps Foundation we all listen to and we all participate in, and I think you sit with them, and as do we. And we just recently saw some of the changes to the framework and such. Anything in particular that you see from that framework that you're interested in adopting more with your team, or that you already have been that is kind of new to the FinOps framework?
Um, I think I was really happy that it had been refreshed. And we're certainly looking at the capabilities, right? So when you start looking strategically, you say, okay, when we built our team originally, we figured out, I said, I may have mentioned that we did like a gap analysis at the beginning. Say, hey, what are your gaps? And build that out. And that's your maturity. Or maybe I said it in another podcast. It's all a blur to me. Um, that now exists. So if you're a brand new practitioner, you don't have to, this entire framework's at hand and it's mature enough now. And it's had so much collaboration and input from actual FinOps practitioners. And I think I said that on LinkedIn. I went, a framework for FinOps practitioners by FinOps practitioners. It's not
Yes.
some consultant who's come up with some framework and sometimes it doesn't even make sense. This is real stuff. So I'm really happy that that has matured
Yes.
and we are looking at that and aligning our capabilities to those capabilities. Crystal ball. We've talked about one of them, which is Nirvana is unit cost economics. I mean, you
Yeah.
get there, then you're there, right? You have now enabled a business and our business to make business decisions on a utility. It's utility computing. I mean, that's the promise. But many of us don't use it as utility, right? We don't switch our AC off. We leave all the windows open, and you run the AC on full blast. That's what's actually happening. If you go
Yes.
back to that analogy,
And in the coach house, which isn't even your
yeah, that's right, with no insulation. So that, and then the big one, and this leads into the amount of workload we have. I've been remiss to not mention AI. Where is AI going to help us?
Mhm.
And then where does the human remain? And I think that's the future, right? I don't think you can give yourself up to the over robot overlord now yet,
Right. Right.
but it is taking a lot of workload off you because the amount of data that you have to process is it's not humanly possible. So I think leveraging and what I would say is that FinOps practitioners, you need to start learning about this technology. Um, Tammy Burnett, a good professional friend of mine, she
Yeah.
used to work at Shell. She's just left. She retired and then she's got another great gig. She's a FinOps ambassador. I think she's on the Agentic AI working group.
Yes.
And I need to go and join that. I asked her I'd want to join that. I'm hugely interested in how I can incorporate that capability into this centralized function because, as I said, we're going to remain small, so I need all the help I can get. So I think my crystal ball isn't that far out. I can't think that far, but that's what I think. I feel that that's where we're heading, and that's where the future lands. We'll nail this idea of unit cost.
Hmm.
There is I was on the working group way back and we did case studies and we figured out, okay, what's crawl, walk, run look like? So all these frameworks are there, but we're going to see a lot more practitioners appearing in many companies and many industries where that'll be their nirvana, right? They'll get to that point where they're bringing value to their company and that they're using whatever frameworks and tooling they provide to the value of the company. And then finally is, yeah, how do you do more with the same? That's
Yeah.
what we're asked to do a lot of times, right? You're not going to get 10 more people, but you've got 10 times more work. And
Yeah. Your spend
sorry,
is
that,
getting more complicated.
and one thing, I just remember one thing, which is because FinOps, you get to a maturity level, and I've seen this again and again, it's happening to us. You get that good that people ask you to do more, but it's in other clouds. So for instance, traditionally we would never do SaaS,
Yeah.
but now we're advising on our SaaS usage.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to have more span and control over utility computing. And, I did mention that I lead a modernization program. We do it programmatically. Um, we're exiting our data centers now. In the end, we're all going to be in cloud.
Yeah.
So that's going to be your portfolio. Everything that you're going to manage is cloud related.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we've talked about kind of outside of the key core CSPs, the Snowflakes of the world, the Databricks of the world. That's an easy kind of bridge into this kind of platform world. SaaS is a little bit further of a bridge, but we're definitely seeing a lot of that demand in the marketplace to just understand better. Even just well, there's tax reasons too, right? Like, how do we understand the difference between SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS? Because we've got to recognize that differently as an organization, right? And that's I mean, it's all about classification at the end of the day, so it kind of gets back to focus a little bit,
But yes,
but
great. That
possible.
I'm really glad that that's matured. And I can't remember what version we're on. It's maturing every time I see an update on that. So I'm really happy that there's um, a lot of sponsorship around focus across the industry. That's
Yeah,
a really
agreed.
good solve.
Yeah, yeah. Necessary, and I mean, for any multi-cloud company, it's required at this
It's
point.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. So I said there was two questions. My second one, this one's easier, I promise. I think. Um, we have we're fortunate. We get people like you. We had Tammy on. We've had we have a list of people who are lined up to do our vodcast with us. And I always want to know, like, what is it? What does Zach want to hear? Like, what if you were to listen to our vodcast, the next one that comes out, are there subjects that you'd love to hear from other FinOps experts talk about?
I'm always interested in, just like I've done, folks sharing their journey and the learnings. As always, I think I'm a big believer in learning from other people's mistakes, especially if it doesn't matter where they are in their maturity level. So some of the things I'd like to hear about are, and it's more of a feel good thing, which is how do you become a FinOps practitioner? Like I want to hear that story.
Oh yeah.
And what was the turning point in your career?
Oh, sure. How'd you get here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
how did you get here? And then
Yeah.
what advice can you give to people who want to get here? And we hear that a lot in FinOps Foundation, and we have that, right? We have people who've got up and said, last week I was an accountant and now I'm a FinOps practitioner, but that's great. What point can you say to someone, what do you do? And Cameron says to me, what do you do? And say, I'm a FinOps practitioner.
Yeah.
I used to be a car mechanic,
Yeah.
right? So like, what was that story? I'd love to hear that. And I think apart from all this technical stuff that we talk about, that's something that I'd really love to learn.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, I remember meeting Joe Daly before he was officially in the role of in FinOps at Cardinal. He was in accounting, and then IT brought him over to handle this weird problem called cloud costs, and the rest is history, right? That's
Yeah,
it. That's like his
exactly. So that
superhero
that
origin story.
that was my opening. Yeah, exactly. What's your origin? There we go. That's your podcast night. This is your origin story. And
Yeah.
maybe there's a bunch of us or one person, I don't know, like different maturity and say, hey, I'm new in my maturity, in my professional career in FinOps, and this is where I am and this is where I've got to. That'd be wonderful. I mean, you speak to someone like Tammy, and she's probably doing it way longer than I have, and the size and scope of spend just dwarfs, but the behaviors and principles are exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. People ask us all the time. We'll be talking to someone in the financial services space, and who else do you work with? Financial services. I can give you a list of 20 customers, but like FinOps is a beautiful thing because your problem and Shell's problem is really similar. The difference is when you get to unit cost economics, right? So that's different because you're trying to tie value to how many barrels versus tie value to how many, investments,
Assets and yeah, right,
assets.
right.
So that's different. But beyond that, cloud cost is cloud cost.
That's right. Our problems are the same problems,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
challenges, should I say? Is that the right
Yeah.
word for it?
Yeah. 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 Opportunities, right?
Opportunities.
Well, Zach,
Yeah. If
I
they're
tell
all
you what,
opportunities, I'd have a full head of hair.
well, Zach, I always love talking to you. I'm so glad we were able to do this today. Thanks for offering to join our podcast, and
Uh,
we look forward to many years of continued talking again years from now and remembering this podcast.
right.
Where will we be then? Well, our origin story will be very
Oh,
different.
that's one of my grandfathers. So then this is what I'm saying to my grandkids. I used to be on this podcast. No, this has been an absolute pleasure, and I'm actually humbled to be asked to, sharing my experiences, and hopefully I've paid it forward for someone and helped someone out.
It's the best. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.